Good morning, everyone. It's Julie Coraccio on Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out. My goal is to help you lead a clutter-free life so you can create the life that you want. So today we're going to be talking about physical clutter, and I just want to give you some tips if you are working on getting rid of your physical clutter, because I believe that if you work on the physical clutter on the outside, it helps with the inside clutter that's going on and vice versa. So no matter where you start, you're going to move your life in the right direction to creating what you want. So every July, I go through everything I own. And this started before I was a professional organizer or coach to help people clear clutter. And the truth of the matter is I was living in Los Angeles and didn't have 4th of July plans. And I thought, well, let me just go through everything I own. Why not? And I was in a small condo, so there wasn't a lot to go through, but it felt really good. And as a result, I do it every year beginning in July. Now, I would say to you, if January at the new year is a good time for you to go through things after the holiday, after your birthday, before school, pick a time that works for you. When I work with someone, I do a clutter control plan because I figure out where their weak spots are. I like to call it what their kryptonite is. And so they have, okay, I know that I get a little caught up in this. One of the things I get caught up in is beauty products, beauty samples. Oh my gosh, I'll lose 10 pounds. Let me try it. So I know that that's something I have to keep in check. Don't go by the beauty counter or just make sure that that doesn't overflow. So I encourage you, one, and after you do the big purge, it will be a lot easier, I promise. You know, I take the month of July, but that's not doing it every day. That's maybe 10 minutes here or, you know, a couple hours here. Like the garage, we're doing a big clear out on the garage, and that's going to take a lot longer than, say, a dresser full of clothes. So pick a time and commit to doing it. Write it down. If you don't write it down in your phone or on a piece of paper and where you keep your schedule, then it's not going to get done. So that's the first thing I want to recommend, that it's just very important. And what's great about this, when I got engaged, my husband and our cat Joey moved in. And because I'm such a great wife, I gave him a pass the first year. I said, you know what, look, you were moving out of your townhome. It's a lot. We'll deal with it next year. Now, because I kept up with stuff every year and let go of clutter, it really wasn't an issue doing it the first year together because I was always on top of it. So again, I don't want to discourage you to feel discouraged after the first time that you do the purge, because I promise it's going to be a lot easier than that. Just commit to doing it every year. So some reasons I always like to try to help motivate people. You know, first of all, if you're in a cluttered environment, you can feel that. You can, you know, I can give you statistics till the cows come home, but clutter causes a general brain dampening of how your brain functions. You know the difference between being in a cluttered room and one that's not cluttered. You know, the average American has over $15,000 in credit card debt, yet has around $7,000 of stuff lying around. I know, you know, we've been recently going through and putting stuff up on Craigslist to sell, and probably $500 to $1,000 just on stuff that we're looking to unload. So there are lots of advantages to letting go of clutter. So I want to address some places where people get stuck. First of all, when you're looking at something, an item, thinking, well, should I keep it or not? Ask yourself, do you use it? Do you love it? Does it bring you joy? Is it costing you money or making you money? Think of your home as real estate, and that's a good question to ask. And one thing that I like to encourage people to ask themselves, especially in closets, and that's a place that a lot of us can get stuck, does it represent who you are or who you want to become? When you're really clear on what you want in life, what your goals are, then it makes it much easier for you to clear out clutter. So as you're going through that, I would encourage you to look at these things and ask those questions. I kind of talk about a couple places where people get stuck with memories, mementos. And I had a big aha moment that I want to share. Again, this is before I ever decided to become a clutter coach, professional organizer. When I was living out in Los Angeles, I saw Peter Walsh speak, and I love him and really respect him. And this was before he was big. And I went to a meeting, and he talked about how we make the mistake of infusing our memories onto an object. Because if you were to take the object away, you still have the memories. They're still here. They're in your heart and they're in your head. And so that's where we get stuck. And so after hearing him talk, I went home. I was very close to my grandmother. And when she died, my aunts and dad were really great. They wanted everyone in the family to have something. Well, I ended up inheriting her beautiful childhood bedroom set. And I love antiques, and it's about 100 years old. It's just beautiful. And now is in my best guest bedroom. Well, a couple other things, again, they gave away everything, were these plates that I have to crack up, because I can imagine my grandmother they look like something back in the 50s. You go and open a checking account and get a free set of dishes, which was, actually pretty nice if you think about it. And so they had this little daisy pattern. I remember using them as a kid. Well, they sat in her basement, and they were white at one point with looks like yellow and green for the daisies, and now we're basically gray. Well, after hearing Peter talk, I went home and donated it. Someone's going to be able to get use out of this who doesn't have dishes. Maybe they just had a fire in the house. You never know. But someone is going to be able to use these. And so that was kind of an aha moment for me. As I see a lot of people, especially after the death of a parent, when they're going through and feel guilty. And what I've told people is your parents would want you to be happy, or your significant other, whoever it is that you lost. And they wouldn't want you to, if clutter is a burden, when it's become a burden for you, they wouldn't want that burden on you. And because I see that, again, a lot of people get held up. And just remember, your memories are in your heart and your head. And here are some things you can do. A lot of times with kids, we want to, oh my gosh, they made this artwork, I want to keep it. Something you can do is take a picture of everything and store it on the computer. You can, limit it, which I suggest, to one box. And I always encourage you, especially with children, what do your kids want? Because sometimes that's what's important, you think important, isn't. And so get their input. And I really encourage working with kids from an early age so that they know how to be organized and to let go of clutter. If you instill those values in them at a young age, then they're not going to have that down the road. They're going to be able to let go of clutter, see that it's kind of a process of life, and it won't become a burden to them. So that's a suggestion for children. One of the other things, I mentioned it earlier, that when you're clearing clutter, I want you to be prepared. Because I have worked with clients before where we've cleared the clutter, we've gotten organized, and if something's been right below the surface or hidden, clutter can cause a distraction for that. So I'll share a couple of examples for you. I was working with a woman, and since they were married, they had never eaten at the dining room table. It was cluttered. That just kind of had become a dumping ground. So we got it cleared out, was really excited, but there were some issues within the marriage. Well, when that clutter cleared, those started to come up. I had another example. I was working with a friend, and this was actually before I became a professional organizer, and her apartment was pretty clutter-free and well organized, except for one entire wall. I thought, that's kind of odd. So as we're going through stuff and processing, what I figured out is she literally had a crazy neighbor who would just complain, and she was on a higher apartment and did a swing shift, so had to leave her light so she could safely walk the steps at night, and he would complain about that, but he just made it crazy. And what we figured out is she was literally creating a barrier and trying to keep this guy out of her life. So I'm like, okay, well, this means let's come up with a plan to talk to your neighbor so that you're not stressed. And then once she was able to do that, there was no need to hold the clutter. So again, whatever's kind of below the surface, just be prepared that that will be coming up, because again, as I mentioned earlier, whatever's going on the inside will definitely happen on the outside. So a couple other places where people get stuck. They think, because I asked you earlier to ask yourself, do you use it? Well, I'm holding on to it just in case. One thing I encourage people to do is trust you will get what you need when you need it. Because if we always thought, oh, this could happen, that could happen, then we would have a lot more clutter, I think, than we probably would. So we've talked about mementos, thinking we might need it. And another thing, I specialize in being green, and so sometimes people don't want to be wasteful, which I am 1,000% important and completely respect. But again, is it costing you money or making you money? There are ways you can donate it. Now, if anything's just, disgusting or trashy, just let that go. But there's usually Craigslist is an option if you'd like to make money, and I have a note about that here. whatever you paid for it, I've yet to see someone that's going to get the value of what they paid for it. And so that's something I'd encourage you to prepare yourself for. If you're going to sell something, it's never usually sells for what you want. And while you're doing that process, the thing to ask yourself, is peace of mind more important for you now, i.e. donate it, because that's usually the quickest thing to do? Is money more important? And come up with a plan, or the tax dollars, again, would lead you to donation. So those are some things that you want to think about. I know another sticking point for physical clutter is if you're in a family and maybe someone's more neat than the other person. I want you to remember that clutter is individual, and it usually has a person who has a lot of clutter. It's their issue. You know, for instance, people who are very creative tend to say, well, I need a messy environment to be creative. And just a quick thing that I love to recommend that I think is really great. If you know those literature sorters, if you work in a company mailbox system and they have slots so they can just put your mail in there, those are really great for creative people. If they're working on a project and they can put, maybe there are several slips of paper or little things that serve as inspiration for them, they can put those in those little cubby holes for each of their projects so that all that information is still together, but it creates a clutter and free environment. So, you know, a lot of times I've seen people get really angry. Oh my gosh, why are they doing this to me? Well, people tend to not do it out of disrespect for you. It's because there is, again, depending on the level of clutter, a deeper issue involved, which you can talk a lot about the psychological issues of clutter, which is a whole other topic. But remember to try to work together. And if you aren't going to hire a professional, make it easy for the person. You know, I did this with my husband. I always encourage people to tackle something when it's a good time for you. I am not a super early morning person, and when I work with a client, I try to say, okay, what's your best time? And if it can fit my schedule, tackle something when your energy is high. Have snacks, have water handy, have all your supplies together. If you're going through filing, have the manila folder and a Sharpie so you can write as you go and get stuff organized. And don't make fun of people. You know, people have their own attachments to things, and just because it might seem crazy to you, it's not crazy to them. So it's really important to be non-judgmental and respectful, because that can cause a lot of damage if you don't. And remember, it's a process. I have found when working with people that at the start is the hardest and most difficult, but as they get the process of letting go of the physical clutter, it becomes a lot easier. I crack up when I have clients who be like, oh my gosh, in between your visits I got rid of a bag. I was so happy, because they see how it makes them feel. They see how the environment is. And then again, if you get rid of this physical clutter, then you can create the life that you want. You know, in any feng shui book you read, and I've had feng shui people come to me and say, hey, I've referred you because I'm just not going to bother to feng shui the house because there's so much clutter. They need to get rid of clutter before I see them. That's the first thing they say. You're going to see immediate effects and feel better. And again, once you get over that first hurdle of doing it, it becomes a lot easier. So when you're looking to get rid of the physical clutter, also come up with a plan. How I personally do it, it's very basic. I have a big sheet of paper, and as I get through a lot, I make the paper smaller because it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something. But I go second floor, and I divide closet, jewelry, bathroom, underneath the sink, and I really divide it so I can say, okay, I have a chunk of this, I'll go and tackle the second closet today. And if you aren't feeling it, you know what, that's okay. Like when I first started, when I moved here, Raleigh, several years ago, I was like, you know what, I don't want to go through my photographs this year, and I didn't. But because I kept on top of everything, it wasn't a huge issue. And the next year, for whatever reason, I was able to tackle it. So I don't push myself, and, you know, certainly never push anyone else. But just, you know, check in with yourself. But if it's something that you get on a regular basis of doing and ask yourself those questions, it's going to be a lot easier. Birthdays and holidays are a great time also to purge for kids. If you have a lot of presents coming in and toys, that's the time to be like, okay, we're getting new stuff right afterwards, and that way you keep on top of it. Because then once you buy a house and get settled and have a family, then that's when physical clutter can really occur. So I hope you have found these tips helpful. If you would like to learn more about me, please visit reawakenyourbrilliance.com, and I'm available to coach, help you get organized, whatever it needs to help you create the life that you want. All right, everyone, get out there and create a great day. Bye now.